Hi, and thank you for joining me for another installment of Theology 333. It's a look at who God is, theology, a study of God, in 3 minutes and 33 seconds. My hope and my prayer is that this is something that will encourage us in this time where we might be questioning what's going on in our world and our environment. You know, I remember a time when I first went away to college, and my parents dropped me off at college and got in their car and drove away. And in that moment was probably one of the loneliest times I had ever felt. My family wasn't right there with me. My friends, I didn't know anybody there, and my friends were in other places. And I felt very, very alone. Probably for the first time in my life, just utterly alone. But I remember in the midst of that, when all of those other things were stripped away, I also found an amazing sense of God's presence. More than I've ever felt before, because I think sometimes it takes stripping away all of those extra things that we have relied on to really understand God's presence. Well, who is God? Well, God is everywhere. God is, the word that they use a lot of times in theology is omnipresent, which basically means he's all over the place. He's everywhere. There's a story in Genesis chapter 26 about Isaac, Abraham's son, that a severe famine came over the land. And so he moved to a town called Gerar. And in that town, God told him, stay here and live here as a foreigner. And he said, I will be with you. Unfortunately, he looked at his circumstances. He looked at the fact that he was a foreigner and he wasn't known there. His wife, Rebecca, was beautiful, and he fell into a mistake that his father Abraham had also made in Egypt years before. And he thought, they're going to kill me and take my wife. So he lied to them and he said, Rebecca's not my wife, she's my sister. And I think we can do that same thing. We can forget in the midst of all of our difficulty and the things that we may worry about, we may forget that the Lord is near. In Philippians 4, it says, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. That's a beautiful sentiment, but he goes on and he says, do not be anxious about anything. If you're in a situation where it's difficult and you're struggling, don't be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Jesus. It's easy to look at our circumstances and look at the things and think God's not there. But there's something more important in understanding that God is there. God is everywhere. God is here. God is where you're at. It isn't about us coming together in a building to find God's presence. God's presence is meeting us where we're at, knowing what we need, when we need it, and being with us just like that, all the time, everywhere. And he can do that for you today.